Welcome to the maiden voyage of the BM5 Extra, a little something we've drummed up podcast-wise for you Bucknutters to bring you the best of what we got. Who better to start with than the man himself, the best in the business, Dane Brugler, senior NFL draft analyst for NFLDraftScout.com and host of the Trust the Tape podcast. Dane, we appreciate you taking some time out of your Monday morning to chat with us.
Of course. No, good morning, Dan. It's always a pleasure, my pleasure to be on with you and talk about Ohio State football. It's coming off a pretty big win, huh?
Definitely a big win, and I don't want to give away Dane's whole life story here. And he is in Frisco, Texas, which is the greater Dallas-Fort Worth area, but he is a Northeast Ohio native, so let's get it out of the way early. Your thoughts on the game? Were you surprised by the outcome? What was your opinion of the Buckeyes?
Well, I don't think there's any question that Ohio State is the far more talented team of the two in this year's edition, but Michigan played well, and I thought they better executed their game plan than Ohio State, especially for the first 3.5 quarters, really up until that arm punt by O'Korn late in the fourth quarter, and then the subsequent Ohio State touchdown that kind of put it away. But, you could argue that if Michigan had a better quarterback, the outcome would have been vastly different. So I think Ohio State definitely has some questions on defense that, kind of left unanswered from the Iowa game. But the talent on this team it's just so easy to get excited about. I mean, there are, 4 GMs at the game, and it's mostly because of Ohio State. The amount of talent and NFL talent that they put out there is really impressive, and you saw that. And in the end, that's what won the game was Ohio State had more talent, and they made more plays.
Yeah, they've recruited better. One of the things I think that's going to come out about Harbaugh here as we go is that he hasn't recruited as well as, believe it or not, even Brady Hoke did. Now, Brady Hoke didn't develop the guys, but they're just not as talented across the board. And once he lost that senior class, it looks like they're struggling. And Harbaugh hasn't done anything at quarterback. He was supposed to be a quarterback whisperer, so. Oh,
yeah, definitely. And we'll see next year with McCaffrey. It seems Harbaugh was just dead set on redshirting him this year, but with Spate and O'Korn, and it took them forever just to put Peters in there. I mean, it is a big surprise that the quarterback issue was this bad. I mean, Michigan still went. They're still going to be an 8 or 9 win team this year with a terrible quarterback situation. So Harbaugh can still coach, he can still recruit, but right now it's clear it's just not at the same level as Ohio State.
It's just bizarre because he had done incredible things at quarterback starting at the University of San Diego, and he just maybe Andrew Luck just confused us. Okay, let's get to the important guys here, the Buckeyes. Today we're going to try and focus on the guys we know will be in the NFL draft. We'll have Dane on again closer to the draft or maybe after this season's over when guys make declarations of leaving early or not, and we'll touch on those guys a little bit at the end. But we're going to focus today on the guys we know will be in the draft. Ironically, we're going to start with 2 underclassmen or 2 juniors. Dane came out with his first mock draft 6 days ago today and had 2 Buckeyes in there. The first Buckeye picked, or so on the list, 24, Denzel Ward, the cornerback. I don't think anyone thinks Denzel's coming back. He'd be crazy to come back. Here's what I'd like to know. Obviously, Ohio State's had borderline unreal success at corner. They're on a run here that's got to be historic from a draft perspective. How would you compare Ward's season thus far to the draft-eligible seasons of Marshawn Lattimore, Eli Apple, Garyon Conley, and Bradley Roby? Obviously, we're not asking about how they look in the pros because we all know now that Marshawn Lattimore might be the best corner on the planet. But we didn't necessarily know that then. So your top 5 and where Ward would fit in there, maybe how you feel about Ward in general.
Yeah, and that's a tough question because we're talking about probably 5 first-round picks. I mean, guys that are all immensely talented. I think I would probably lean towards Roby. Just in terms of who of those past Buckeye corners is he most closely compared to, just because of their final seasons. Some mostly ups, a few downs, and you really could point to all those guys. I mean, Eli Apple, I thought was more of a project when he was coming out. Marshawn Lattimore and Garyon Conley, both of them last year I thought had better seasons, but with Denzel Ward, we've seen him have a few issues with bigger wide receivers. We saw that in the opener against Simi Cobb. in Indiana, and we saw it even over the weekend against Michigan when even in the first quarter he broke off his route, and if he was just a little bit longer, a little bit taller, he's able to knock down that pass, that seam pass to the tight end. So, I think he's twitched up. I think he has elite speed, and a lot of that reminds me of, watching Roby when he was in a Buckeyes uniform, because Roby didn't have that size that you want, but he had the speed, and he had the quickness, the fluid hips, and Denzel Ward, that's what he does. That's his whole game, is he's able to stay composed, to always be within arm length of the receiver. He'll get away with some grabbing at times, but I think he does a great job of not making it obvious. And, I think Michigan fans would disagree with that, with some of the plays over the weekend. But, hey, if you can get away with it, then, you're not doing anything wrong. And all corners hold. It's just a matter of can you let go enough or quick enough so you can get away with it or not. And so with Denzel Ward, the biggest issue is going to be the size, height, arm length. It matters greatly for some NFL teams, all NFL teams, but some in particular. So we'll have to see how that plays out in the draft next spring. At the combine, it'll be interesting to see what the measurables are. I think he's going to run a 4.3, but what about the height? Is he 5'10"? Is he going to be 5'10.5", close to 5'11"? That'll be interesting. And then arm length. Ideally, you'd like to see 31, 32-inch arms for a corner. He might be closer to 30, maybe even under that. So the measurables at the combine be really important for Ward. But like we saw with Bradley Roby, he overcame that lack of size to be a first-round pick. And I think Denzel Ward absolutely can do the same thing. Now, this is a very strong corner class. So is there a possibility he could maybe fall out of the first because of the depth of the corner class and just the size? It's possible, but I think that Denzel Ward has the best chance of going in the first round of the 2018 draft among Ohio State's draft eligible players.
One thing I know for sure is he is going to fly at the combine. You're talking about a state 100 champion, guys with a track background and any of those gifts. I'm not saying he's going under 4.3, but he's going under 4.35.
The impact that he's made on special teams,
exactly,
blocking punts, blocking field goal or an extra point. I mean, just that alone, that's what teams are looking for. Guys that can impact the final score, impact the scoreboard, and he can definitely do that.
You could make an argument his special teams play on the Penn State and in the Penn State Michigan games were two of the biggest plays made in either game. Ironically, why don't you share with the people who your first corner off the board will be if the mock draft goes according to plan?
Well, it just depends if you think Minkah Fitzpatrick's a corner or not. But I do have
Let's say he's a safety.
Yeah. Right. I do have Carlton Davis in the top 10, the talented corner from Auburn who, the former Buckeye commit. And with Davis, we don't have to worry about the size because that's something that he does offer. He's a classic pressman corner. He has the speed. He's not a 4.3 guy like Denzel Ward, but he's plenty fast enough. He's built for the NFL. He gets in receiver space. He loves to jam, loves to press, has that size, the length that you look for. And then he does a great job at the catch point, finding the football, going up, making a play to disrupt, make it really hard on receivers to finish. And so I love that physicality at the catch point. Great job covering slants. He's very physical, very good high to low tackler in run support. And then, like I said, he also has enough speed where I've seen him chase down ball carriers from behind. I've seen him stay hip for hip with receivers on vertical routes. So there's a lot to like about Carlton Davis from a traits perspective. And that's what NFL teams look for, especially at the corner position. They want to see those traits, and Carlton Davis offers that. So it's one of those what could have been if Carlton Davis ended up at Ohio State, and could be talking about Ward and Davis both as future first-round picks.
Yes, we could, and we wouldn't be talking about Damon Arnett, which would make my morning and my Saturdays a lot better, but I digress. The other guy who was on here, Sam Hubbard, for those who are wondering, Sam Hubbard participated in senior tackle, which means Sam Hubbard is as good as gone. Your vibe on Sam Hubbard, you had him 30.
Yeah, and I know he even considered coming out last year as a redshirt sophomore. So no surprise that this year as a redshirt junior, he's moving on. And I don't think there's any doubt that the top defensive lineman on that defensive line is Nick Bosa. We'll be talking about him quite a bit at this time next year, next year's draft. But if we're talking about just the draft-eligible players, then you could certainly point to Hubbard as being the top guy. I think plenty of people know his background, being a safety in high school, playing lacrosse, just a terrific athlete. And then, Urban Meyer, he goes down to Cincinnati, gets his hooks on him, moves him to linebacker. I know they even tried him at tight end for a little bit before they settled on defensive end. And then he came in as a freshman and really impressed, and he's impressed ever since. So he's just a loose, nimble athlete. I love his reaction to movements. He can change his plan mid-rush depending on what the offense is doing. He has the first step quickness. He has the flexibility. He can flatten and close around the corner. And I think what really sets Hubbard apart is, just aside from the natural athleticism, is what he does from a mental perspective, the football IQ, that awareness, those instincts. It's such a critical part of what he does. And I think a lot of it comes from preparation, from film work, his ability to track the football, retrace his steps, not get fooled or make mistakes. And I think it makes him much more than a pass rusher, because he can play the run. He can drop and play in space. And so that athleticism, the intelligence, that's what's really points to his versatility, and that's why scouts like him. I don't think they view him as an elite player in any one area of his game, but he's a very safe player because he doesn't have many negatives to what he offers. And so I think he's a guy who is not a lock first-rounder, but I do think that, well, first of all, he's a pass rusher, and pass rushers always go early, but he's also a very safe player. Teams feel comfortable with what you're getting with Sam Hubbard, and that's why I think he's viewed as a very safe bet to go in the top 40 somewhere.
Yeah, he's just a really solid investment. Smart kid, high upside. If you're going to bet on him now, it'd be super unsurprising if he had just a solid 10-year, 55-sack career. Could see him being in New England, seriously. We're going to go a little more rapid fire now, and just maybe a couple sentences on each guy. These are the guys we know will be coming out, and maybe where you think they're going to end up. I'm going to try and go basically in order here. Let's start with Billy Price.
Billy Price, it's so tough, physically, mentally. He holds the Ohio State consecutive starts record, but he wins with power, he wins with leverage. Love how the way he uses his hands to latch and seal. Elflein was a third-round pick last year. I think Price has a chance to go earlier than that. He's going to be fighting for the distinction to be the first center drafted, probably somewhere on day 2.
Jamarco Jones.
Yeah, I like Jamarco Jones, I think, more than a lot of people. I think the strides that he has made, the improvements over the years, is really impressive. And I think the coaches have even talked about that, what he's done over the years, what he did this offseason about getting better conditioning, just working on his strength. And you see that. I think he plays with a wide base. He has an explosive upper body where he can create separation at the point of attack. And I think that, the improvements he's made from year to year really gives me a positive vibe about him going to the pro level and getting better with coaching, buying in. And so I think Jamarco Jones would be a solid mid-round pick, a guy that maybe not right away as a rookie, but year 2 or year 3 will be fighting for a starting job.
Tyquan Lewis,
a little surprised he came back for a senior year, but he put together quite the career as a Buckeye, and I know the production, especially this season, wasn't exactly what you'd expect, and he's not on the same level athletically as maybe Sam Hubbard, but he's stronger. He can hold the edge, and he can be equally productive versus the pass and the run. And when I watch him, I think his best football comes when he's able to convert that first step to power, where he attacks the chest of the blocker, goes right through his numbers, puts him on skates with that raw strength, low leverage. I don't think he has the ceiling as Hubbard or Bosa or maybe even a Holmes, but I think he can project as a solid NFL starter, a guy that will provide valuable depth. You mentioned Hubbard. Could easily see him carving out a 10-year career. Same thing with Lewis. He might not be a big sack artist at the next level, but he's not going to hurt you out there either. I think Lewis could absolutely carve out a nice long career as a pro and at least provide some valuable depth at the next level.
He was next on my list, Jalen Holmes.
Yeah, a guy that didn't have a single start to his name coming into the year, but when you look at him, man, he's body beautiful. He looks like what you want. If I'm an NFL scout, he looks what I'm looking for with an NFL pass rusher. You can tell he's still trying to figure things out, and that comes with the lack of experience. He's still trying to string together those pass rush moves, counter what blockers are doing to stop him. But I think he's going to test well, and with just the raw traits, I think teams are going to look at him and say, hey, we can mold this guy. And so that's why I think he has a chance to be a top 100 pick because of the potential and where he could be a year from now. So I think Jalen Holmes is definitely a name to watch this spring.
And he's always looked like that. He looks better now, but I remember him first day freshman year practice. He was the first guy off the bus type, just blessed.
Mm-hmm.
How about a linebacker here, Chris Worley?
Worley, he has struggled a little bit this year when he was in the middle, but I tell you, he looks a lot more comfortable when he's playing on the outside. He's a solid tackler. He understands the mechanics of the contact point. Low man wins. Love the way he goes low with the shoulder, doesn't give ground, wraps and finishes. I think he's struggled a little bit when he's been asked to cover in space. Sometimes he'll get his eyes in the wrong place. But especially with play action, we saw that in the Iowa game. But I do think Chris Worley is a potentially draftable player later on in the draft, day 3. He's looked so much better on the outside than he did in the middle. I think that's for sure.
Damon Webb, he's tough because I think you could put on his highlights of his highlight tape, and you could think, okay, you know what, this guy, he can play. But then you kind of factor in the low lights, the negative plays, and you start to, doubt starts to creep in. A lot of times his eyes get stuck in the wrong place. That eye discipline's an issue with him. Causes him to be late to react to routes down the field. And as a safety, you just can't let that happen, giving up completions down the field. But like I said, I do think that it's not all bad with him. There are definitely some pluses, definitely some things you can build off of. Webb will have it'll be big for the spring for him and see how he works out, how he does during the pre-draft process. Does he get invited to, the Shrine Game or the Senior Bowl? Does he have a chance to show what he has at those events? Because if he does, I do think he has a chance to get drafted. Right now, I'd say it's more likely he's on the outside looking in, but he definitely has a chance. This one certainly won't get much interest. J.T. Barrett.
Barrett is going to be really interesting because I think he's got a good chance of getting invited to the Senior Bowl. And from there, it's anyone's guess because I think any Ohio State fan would tell you that he's a better runner than he is passer. But when you look at the traits, he has NFL arm strength. I mean, he has the velocity. He can make those throws. The question with J.T. Barrett is just from a processing standpoint. I mean, he's a smart guy, but he doesn't anticipate throws, and that's something we see consistently. He usually has to wait till the receiver comes open before he unloads and fires, and a lot of times that will lead to mistakes, and especially in the NFL, you can't do that. But then again, the final drive against Penn State, we saw him anticipate those throws. So we know he can do it. And listen, the quarterback position in the NFL is such an intangible position. That's what NFL teams care about. And we know J.T. Barrett has impeccable intangibles, off the charts, and that's something that will count a lot in draft rooms. And so I've seen a lot worse quarterbacks drafted than J.T. Barrett. I think on day 3, when a team looking for a guy with the traits, but more importantly the intangibles, I think they'll take a look at J.T. Barrett and say, let's take a chance. That's a guy we want in our locker room, a guy we want to take a chance on. So I do think J.T. Barrett, as long as he does okay during the pre-draft process, somewhere 5th, 6th, 7th round, someone will take a chance.
I would say he's got a chance to be a Chase Daniel type, and people should go Google how much cash Chase Daniel's made in the league, and he's barely played. We'll finish with this. I'm going to give you 5 names of guys who may come out. You tell me who should come out. Jerome Baker, Draymond Jones, Isaiah Prince, Mike Weber, Paris Campbell.
You know, I'll start by saying I'll never say that a player should come out, just because I always think that players have a lot to, especially those 5 players, have a lot to gain by coming back and getting better, before there can be, what the pro game is going to demand of them. But when you look at each one of their situations, you can understand what they're thinking. You know, with Mike Weber, he was banged up this year. The running back position had such a short shelf life, and with J.K. Dobbins in the fold, he's the best running back on that roster easily. I don't think I would blame Mike Weber if he went to the pros. Now, should he? That's a different question. But I would not blame Mike Weber at all. Go to the pro level, try to, get NFL career while you can, instead of going back, getting hurt, playing second fiddle to Dobbins again. But we'll have to see where he stands on that. Being a redshirt sophomore, he's still very young, but he is draft eligible. I think the most talented name on those 5 that you said was Draymond Jones. His initial quickness as an interior pass rusher is outstanding. Another guy who's just very, very young. The traits that he shows are first-round worthy. If he comes out, he could be a first-round pick. But I think that if he returns, it's almost like Sam Hubbard last year. He could come out, but if he returns for his redshirt junior year, if he goes back to school, I think he has a chance to go from maybe a first-round pick to a potential top 10 pick, because Draymond Jones, we know the traits, the athleticism for a man his size, but if he gets better with some of the details of the position and some of the technique and the mechanics, I think Draymond Jones could really go high a year from now. I think one of the linebackers, Jerome Baker, we're going to be talking a lot about, because I think there's a good chance he does go pro. But should he? No, not based on the tape. He's an outstanding athlete. He's going to test very well. And we saw that against Michigan with some of the plays he made downhill. But we also saw in the Michigan game why he shouldn't come out. His struggles in coverage really stand out. This is a guy that he struggles to anticipate down the field. He doesn't notice things coming his way, and he's out of position. So he has the athleticism that the NFL wants, but from a mental standpoint, he's just not ready. And so it's going to be interesting to see what he does. He's too much of an almost player right now. And by that I mean there are too many plays where he almost makes it, whether it's, a tackle situation where he makes contact with the ball carrier but doesn't finish, or he's in the vicinity of a receiver but he's not able to make a play on the ball. He's an almost player right now, and he needs to go back to school so he can be more of a complete player with another year of seasoning. But I don't know. We'll see what Jerome Baker ends up doing.
Quite frankly, you cannot get a more comprehensive report on anything, much less draft, than from Dane Brugler. This is a very busy guy in high demand, and the fact that he was willing to take as much time as he did with us this morning is greatly appreciated. Dane, you're the best. We cannot wait to have you back on after the season and the juniors have declared or not. Have a great day.
Anytime. Thanks, Dan.